I'm all about experiences, but one that I'm okay with not having is being in an avalanche. Besides the very real possibility of death, something I hate is that once you're in it, you really can't do much to help yourself. You basically have to rely on luck and others to help you in order to hopefully survive. The biggest thing about avalanches is learning how to avoid them.
My name is Laura Zara.
The most important thing is not dying.
I'm a survival and backcountry specialist.
I'm getting caught on every tree branch. Whew. I love antlers.
I have a hard time explaining what I do and what my life looks like.
But it's way easier to just show you.
Sometimes you end up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you can't always predict where the bears are gonna be. Learn what it takes to become Decivilized.
There's an entire science behind predicting avalanches, but you don't need to be an avalanche scientist to make the right decisions out in the mountains. Knowledge is power and ignorance is death. So the biggest rule is, if you have doubts, don't risk it. A serious avalanche can weigh over 1 million tons, and while they can average at around 80 miles an hour, the highest speed clocked in an avalanche was 250 miles an hour. Either way, don't think you're going to be outrunning one. The cause of fatality for avalanches can be the impact alone, with that massive weight and high speed hitting your body like that. If you do survive the impact, you are at very serious risk of suffocation. Even if you do have an air pocket and don't suffocate within the first 15 minutes, as many people do, you are at risk of hypothermia. So there's a lot of problems once you're in it. If you can avoid being in it, way better. This is all made a lot more difficult by the fact that the snow that's just been cascading down the mountain isn't the soft, powdery stuff that's falling on the ground. It's way different. When snow is agitated, the crystal structure breaks apart, and it's a process called sintering. Funny enough, it's the same process that I like to use when I'm trying to harden snow to dig out a snow shelter. When snow first falls from the sky, it has this shape that we know and love. It lands on the ground, and these bonds are constantly changing between the ice crystals. So when you have this snowflake, they don't really bond up very well. When snow is agitated, these points break off, and the ice crystals get rounded. So now these bonds are going to form a lot tighter. And people describe it as being almost concrete-like. If you think about the difference even between the snow in your yard and the snowbank's going to be a lot harder, and that's just from being hit with a plow one time. So you have it tumbling down an avalanche, and that's just going to be like really bonded together. You can't just dig yourself out of concrete. On average, people get buried 1.3 meters, and that equates to between 1 and 1.5 tons of snow on you. Not ideal. There's 4 ingredients you need for an avalanche: a steep slope, snow cover, a weak layer in the snow cover, and a trigger. Most avalanches happen on a slope that is above 30 degrees. The magic number seems to be 39, so plus or minus 5 degrees on that. If you get much steeper than that, the snow tends to just fall off all the time. It's not building up. If you get much less steep than that, then it's not really steep enough to have that snow come down. Goes without saying you need snow. The problem really starts, though, when you have a weak layer in that snowpack, because when gravity is greater than the bonds that holds the snow together, that's when an avalanche starts. It's a simple concept, but understanding what creates that weak layer is actually one of the most important pieces of being able to predict if there are avalanche conditions present. So the bonds that are forming between the snow happen the entire year, and the strength of the snow layer depends on the shape of the ice crystals that make it up. You often hear the term faceted snow, and that is what you don't want, unless you want to make weak layers, and then you do want faceted snow because they make weak layers. Faceted snow basically means there's these large angular ice crystals that don't make good bonds with their neighbors. I know people like that. So think about when you go out to make a snowman and it's not good snowmaking snow. You can't even make a snowball. It's kind of sugary. That can be faceted snow.
It's not working.
I know.
As I already hinted at with sintering, snowflakes don't stay like this. Ice crystals are always changing. And the large angular crystals that happen with faceted snow happen when there is a large temperature gradient. So this can be between the ground and the snow, the surface temperature of the air. There can be large temperature gradients which create these ideal conditions for these crystals that we don't want to grow. There's 3 main types of faceted snow. The first is depth hoar, and this happens when there's a shallow snowpack and it's been super cold out. So usually early season when the ground is actually warmer than the snow and the air temperature. Once this depth hoar gets set up, it's going to be this persistent weak layer that will probably be there for the whole season. And then you have surface facets, which happen when there's a big difference in the temperature between the snow and the air. A lot of times it happens when it's been really, really hot during the day, maybe in the springtime, and then the nights get really, really cold. You have these large angular crystals grow. It's a problem when you have a bunch of new snow fall on top of that and you have this weak layer that's preserved there underneath all the weight of this fresh powder. Last but not least, we have surface hoar. This actually is essentially frozen dew. It's new crystals that are growing on the surface of the existing snow. And it's these kind of feathery, long crystals that are really not super strong, so even wind can knock them down. The problem is, because they can be knocked down in certain areas, it's really inconsistent. You might have a bunch of snow that covers it. In some areas you have this weak layer and some you don't. So it's a little dicey and unpredictable. For our last ingredient, we need a trigger. And this can be a natural trigger, such as a super big dumping of snow. It can be as little as snow falling off of a branch of a tree. Oftentimes, though, it's not a natural trigger, it's a human-caused trigger, which would be you or someone else. The anatomy of an avalanche. First, you have the starting zone. This is where the trigger happens. Then you have the track. It's where all the action takes place. Then the runout zone, where the avalanche is coming to a stop. You can look for an avalanche path or an avalanche chute on a mountain, even when there's not an active avalanche. These are areas that are just going to be more prone to avalanche. A lot of times there's a bowl and it's going to have this long, treeless chute underneath it that, just naturally an avalanche wants to happen. A lot of people have an unrealistic sense of security because most ski mountains practice avalanche mitigation, where they're keeping track of all this stuff. They're looking at forecasts, they're paying attention to the snowpack, and they're detonating explosives to set off little avalanches when there's no one on the mountains so that these things aren't happening when there's people there. The problem is if you go into the backcountry, that doesn't exist. You have to be that person that's making those decisions about where an avalanche is going to happen. And you're probably not even gonna have explosives to set them off to make it safe. So it gets really tricky when it's just you going out. If you do decide to go out alone in the backcountry, particularly if you're going out where there's really deep snow and engaging in winter sports activities, you kind of do have to become an avalanche scientist in a way. You're gonna be the one making the decisions, and there's a lot of information that I can barely scratch the surface of right now. So I cannot recommend enough to take an avalanche safety course. There's so much that goes into this, and not only are you going to learn what to look for, how to predict things, what to be paying attention to in detail, you're also going to learn the safety procedures, what equipment that you need to have out with you, and how to use it. Also, being able to practice and know how to use that equipment in a very realistic scenario is going to be massive in terms of keeping yourself safe. Technology is pretty amazing, and the equipment that you can bring with you is a huge lifesaver in case of that worst case scenario. Having a beacon, a probe, a shovel, and a friend to help you if you are the one in the avalanche is absolutely essential if you're going out there. Even though it's not a guarantee, it's gonna give you that fighting chance. They also make these really cool airbags that you can strap on, and when you get an impact, they blow up and can help you float to the surface of that snow as it's cascading down. So, also pretty cool. You need to make sure to do your pre-trip research. Avalanche forecasts are pretty incredible. If you just Google avalanche forecast in your area, wherever you're gonna be going out into, they have maps of that area, usually color-coded with the levels of danger, so you get an idea of where the snowpack is at that moment in time. In your research, make sure that you look up where you're going and know what kind of slopes that you're about to go out on. Apps are really great for this too. And I love being Decivilized, but this is like the one time when civilization is just so awesome because you can go on and find programs like Onyx where you can have on your phone a layer where you can see exactly what the slope angle is. So you know, all right, we're going down this mountain. These are the areas we want to avoid if the avalanche danger is high. This is the areas where we can safely go. Here's our backup plans. You can even download offline maps so that when you're out there, you can readjust your situation and say, all right, well, I ended up over here, so how am I gonna pick a new route to get down? Pretty cool, and that slope being such a problem, it's gonna help you out if you know the slope angle that you're on. Talk to locals. There's certain times of the year and there's certain areas that are just more dangerous, and locals are gonna know what's going on in the backcountry. When you're out there, pay attention. Avoid suspect slopes, watch the weather. If you've had a really super nice hot day and then you start getting dumped on, might be a red flag. If there's really strong winds and you're seeing all those pretty patterns that the snow's making, hey, maybe this could be depositing a lot of snow in one area and that could be a problem area. Watch out for cornices, which is that kind of mass of hardened snow that happens like at the lip of a precipice on a mountain. If one of those falls, or if someone goes out and makes one of those fall, those can trigger avalanches. Be aware of where your avalanche chutes are and know where those runout zones are as well so that you don't park your car in one. Even if you're on a slope that you don't think is a high danger slope, is there another slope that's leading onto that slope that could potentially be steep enough or in that sweet zone to create an avalanche, and then you're gonna be in the path of it when it meets up to where you are? Things to think about. There's also some warning signs that you need to look out for. If you are having cracks appear at your feet in the snow, if you hear a whumping sound, which is one of those words that just sounds exactly like it's said. Basically, the snow is collapsing from this layer, and when that's happening and that snow is settling and dropping like that, great conditions for an avalanche. Exquisite. If you're seeing any of these major red flags, maybe leave. It's kind of like when you get in a bad relationship and you start seeing the red flags, you want to get out like as soon as you can, because it's not going to be good if you stay in it. We're not going to spend a lot of time here because preparation is really what's important, but worst case scenario, you do end up in an avalanche. Like we've talked about, most of it is luck, whether you live or die. But there's a few things you can do. You can try to kick off the bottom if you feel it. You can try to swim for the surface. Problem is our body is actually denser than everything else in the avalanche, so it's gonna wanna sink to the bottom. Once the snow stops moving, you can try to create an air pocket around your head or punching one of your hands up towards the surface. You always hear stories about people spitting to see which direction is up because it's just, you don't even know at that point. A lot of times people's mouths get filled up with snow, so you can try clenching your teeth and keeping your mouth closed. A really funny thing that they always tell people is to stay relaxed and really calm down your breathing, which I can't imagine trying to calm down your breathing in that situation, but hey, if you can do that, great, because you're gonna make your air last longer and you're gonna have less CO2 to poison you. If you do witness an avalanche and you know there's someone in that, you have about 15 minutes before their survival rate is really gonna start plummeting. That being said, don't give up after 15 minutes. There's a possibility they have an air pocket, but time is of the essence. You need to get there and get digging. This is where your avalanche safety course is really important. Me telling you how to dig a person out using a probe and a beacon, finding them, locating them, the system that goes into that is something you need to do. And I am just using this as another shameless plug for you to take your avalanche safety course so that you can do that, know how to do it, know how to use it, and practice it. Don't be the guy that goes out in the wilderness and thinks he knows how to do the bow drill because he saw a picture. Same thing with trying to dig someone out of an avalanche. There's teams of people that are ready to help in case of an avalanche, and there are also specialized dogs that are trained to find people who have been buried in an avalanche. This is really close to my heart. I think it's amazing when dogs can rescue people and when people dedicate countless hours volunteering their time to train their dog to be good at this. I had the pleasure of working with some canines from the Canine Task Force to see how this happens and what it looks like. It is one of the coolest things that I've experienced. Man, all I can say is I hope that if there's an avalanche, I have a dog team near me that can come and find me. It's pretty incredible. Of course, the problems with both humans trained and canines trained to help rescue someone in this scenario, they have to be close. And they have to be in an area where they can access you and get to you within these really short windows of time. Really fun fact in case you haven't decided that you don't want to be in an avalanche yet. During World War I, when they were fighting on the Austrian-Italian front in the Alps, more than 10,000 troops were killed in a single day from avalanches that were set off from artillery fire. At the end of the day, there's always just a risk in living. You could get hit by a 16-year-old texting and driving while driving her mom's SUV on your way to get to the snow mountain. So don't let any of this stuff stop you from getting out in the backcountry. But that being said, stay informed, do your research, and don't end up falling down a mountain into a snowy tomb. And take your avalanche safety course. Then something happens to it and it kills you. When they hit the ground, wow. There's three main types of faceted snow. The first type, I don't know how I'm gonna do this.